Hi friends, I'm Mike Malcolm and this is Tri-Spired Tuesday, the video series that helps us evangelize Tulsa and the whole world using the beautiful art and architecture of Holy Family Cathedral. Lightning struck Holy Family. About 2 or 3 weeks ago, we had a huge lightning storm that struck those big copper towers that are above our heads, and it did major damage to our sound system, so we are exploring options right now to replace it. But this might be fun to look at a brief history of sound systems in the church. The first sound system for the church was nothing. We did not have a sound system. The closest thing we had to it was using the natural curve of the apse wall in the church to work kind of like a satellite dish to help focus sound spoken by the priest so that you could hear at least that he was speaking out in the congregation. That lasted for a number of years until we got our wraparound pulpit that was around this column. That wraparound pulpit had stairs that led up to a platform and then a rail around the platform so that the priest or deacon could read the gospel from up there, and then the homilist would preach from there. Over that platform, over the ambo, was kind of what looks kind of like a baldacchino or a covering that's over the ambo. Underneath it was what we called the shell, and the shell was a commercially available product. It was a concave dish, basically about 5 feet across, and it helped to focus the sound from the homilist and send it out towards people's ears. We stuck with that for a while. Then in the 1930s, broadcasting homilies or music from a cathedral became a common occurrence, and especially in the post-World War II era, so the mid-1940s on, Holy Family had midnight mass broadcast nationwide on the radio. So that was a pretty big deal for us at the cathedral, and kudos to our choir back in the late 40s and 50s. The sound system technology increased during that time rapidly, and we moved from the notion of broadcasting mass or homilies to using the church with microphones to reinforce the sound so that the people in the pews could hear it. And some of the first sound systems that existed were in Catholic churches, especially the big ones, especially on the coasts. By the time that technology reached Tulsa, our very first electronic sound system was a little powered mixer about as big as a shoebox. It accepted 6 or 8 inputs from different microphones, and then it had wires that would lead out from it to speakers that were mounted about halfway up the columns in the church. That worked okay for quite a while, and we used it until 1992, when then Cathedral Rector Monsignor Halpine decided to put in a sound system that he referred to as Halpine's Folly. It was an expensive system that put a basket of speakers in the center of the church, way above the altar, and the problem with it is that it didn't work. And so some people called it the coffee filter because it looked like one. The pastor at the time called it Halpine's Folly, referring to the mistake he had made with that design. The next iteration of sound system took place about 2 months after that failed installation, where they put small speakers back at the tops of all the columns. Those little speakers are still in use in some of our cry rooms, the gathering spaces where you walk into the church. Those speakers are still performing just fine. They're on at a pretty low volume, so they don't age very rapidly, but they were essential to sound in the church. There were 36 of them atop all of the columns. In 2007 and really 2008, we put in our first very serious sound system, and it was the sound system that got struck by lightning. These 2 big columns are made by a company that promises the ability to steer sound from the tops and bottoms of the speakers down to our ears on the pew level. And it doesn't let sound go up as much and bounce off the ceiling or bounce off the side walls. It keeps it focused pretty tightly down at the pew level. It worked fairly well for a long time. We've had 17 good years out of it, and it would maybe even last longer, except it all got struck by lightning. So the current system is held together by Band-Aids, but we hope pretty soon, within a month or so, that we'll be able to start installing something new that will help us all hear better. So that is Tri-Spired Tuesday for today. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next week.